Greetings, sports fans. We are the Sports Kings from Queens. I'm Gino, joined by my co-hosts, Kevin and Darren. Today is Wednesday, February 19th. This is episode 156. Catch us wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram. Give us a look. Join our pages. We'd love to hear from you. Leave us some questions, comments. We'll be sure to respond to you. Tonight, we're going around the sports world. We're going to include some college basketball. We're going to start a little baseball talk with the Yankees and Mets as spring training is just getting underway. But we're going to start it off with the NHL. Four nations face off instead of the All-Star game. Seems like a hit at this point. I mean, they actually brought some fun and excitement to the game. We are down to the final, which is tomorrow between U.S. and Canada at TD Garden. This coming off. This will be the rematch from the Saturday game where the USA beat Canada 3-1. Game started off with 3 fights in 9 seconds. Wound up being a pretty good game. Kev, talk to me about the Four Nations.
How dare the Canadians boo the American national anthem? You know what? Politics aside, definitely, especially with the U.S. and Canada, you can tell these players were out there playing.
Absolutely.
What a difference from the other All-Star games. That'll include NFL and NBA in there too. I think baseball, you still have, guys are out there trying, but pitcher versus batter. I mean, they're trying to do something there,
Yeah.
but as far as being true to the game itself, the NHL has hit on the right hit the right target on this with this Four Nations. As Darren said last week, I think it would have been a little bit better if we had been able to get a Russian team in there, just because of the quality of players for the Russians that are not on this participating in this. But the concept worked.
I agree with you, and I agree with Darren last week. I do think politics may be involved in this right now.
No, really? You think so?
Listen, they're banned from Olympic competition.
Yeah.
Russia can't have their logo on anything. They're in a war right now with Ukraine. I mean, so there's a lot. It's all
politics. It's all politics.
100%.
You know that. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
My point was, and I think you guys know it too, was strictly 100% from a pure athlete sport perspective of. It would have been nice to see the Russian players in there.
Look, listen, I agree. And there are so many good players from that area of the world that it's a shame that we're not seeing them in this tournament as well. So I agree with both of you.
Yep. So, but like you said, it brought back, hey, you're watching a hockey game more than these other All-Star games. I mean, they're out there checking. I mean, obviously the fights are one thing. But even without the fights, they're still playing a good physical checking style game that you haven't seen the last couple of years. I know they've tried this 3-on-3 stuff, and almost like what the NBA has with these little mini tournaments. It's fine, but you know what? It's worked with the NHL.
I mean, to me, I'll slightly disagree with you, Kevin. Only on one thing: Sweden and Finland are playing their butts off as well. We've had
no doubt about
every
it.
Game has been. I know U.S. and Canada, but Sweden. Every game's been a 1-goal game except for 2 empty netters. Okay.
Yep.
U.S. losing by 2 to Sweden by winning by 2, I should say, to against Canada, and Canada winning by 2 against Finland. Everything else has been. We've had overtimes. We've had a lot of fun in this tournament, and you're right. The intensity's there because they're playing for the. Hockey players always had a little bit more pride in the fact of the country just by nature. It's just been that kind of thing. And this country, it's always been strong because of the 80 Olympic team, as the picture of Jim Craig behind you, has really been a major impetus of a lot of people, including myself, favorite sports moment of all time.
Oh, yeah.
With that win, and they didn't win the gold that night. They beat Finland to win the gold. Everybody thinks they won the gold against the Russians. They did not. But at the same time, they really found a way to have the intensity. The Kachuk brothers just coming out there like the Hanson brothers, just starting fights. Miller giving up some size, but going in there and just dropping the gloves first. Listen, I like the scrappiness of hockey, so that'll never bother me. But I just think they've really hit on something. And if it expands to 6 countries at some point where they add the Czechs and the Russians, it'll be great. If they don't, they don't, because the 4 that have been here have been really good as well.
Yeah, it's hard to, because you don't want to get too many teams, and then you start taking 2-3 weeks off or something. This is long enough of a break in games. I mean, there'd be almost 2 weeks taken out of the regular season.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing just to keep in mind is that this is the warm-up for the Olympics next year. So although this was a big hit, you're going to have a year next year where you're going to go to the Olympics instead of an all-star game.
Yep.
So, it will be 2 years from now when they do this again, and we see another carryover probably, because you'll have this 4 nations face-off in 2025. You'll have the Olympics in 2026. And then coming off the Olympics, I'm sure the 4 nation face-off, whatever style, whatever teams they come up with for 2027 is going to be a huge hit again.
Yeah.
Right. 2025 to 2026 Olympics, 2027 is going to be great again, as long as they do some kind of similar format to what they did this year. And listen, you get to see these guys out there actually playing, which is the big thing with a lot of these all-star games, which Kev, you just said, but that's the thing. You don't see these guys trying during an all-star game. And here they are, they're out there, they're hitting, they're skating their asses off, they're playing, getting games going into overtime. We got fights going on. It's been a great,
people getting hurt.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
That's the part that you don't love to see, but it's part of it.
But when you see the NFL going to flag football and the NBA, had to do something, because last year was 211 to 186. I mean, it wasn't even basketball, but
it's all. I have a suggestion for the NBA. We'll get to that when we get there.
Okay.
But it's just, this was fun and so far, and obviously the U.S. beating Canada was a big deal. This is the most talented U.S. team we've ever seen. And then you look at Canada and you're like, wow, they take it outside of the goaltending, which I give Hellebuck the advantage a little bit over Bennington, but Canada's like power play is. It's
look at the top line they could put out there. Come on.
Come on. I mean, you can't commit a penalty against this team. You feel like they'll score in a second, and it's like, oh my God. They're a 6 squad. The U.S. is really talented too, so this should be a really cool championship match at the TD Garden. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm sure tomorrow night's going to be just amazing on all cylinders tomorrow. So.
Yeah,
there'll definitely be intensity.
You mentioned the Olympics next year. Is there an all-star break, or are they just doing an Olympic break? Do you know?
I think it's the Olympic break.
Good.
I do too, but I'm not 100% sure, because they tried like that thing where it was almost like a month off. It was brutal for hockey.
Yeah. You know what? Name an all-star team. Let guys have their incentives or whatever, but don't play it. Don't play the game. You've got the Olympics coming up.
Nobody needs it.
Nope.
Nobody needs it.
All right. Any other NHL points before we move on?
Yeah, just let's looking forward to the championship.
Yep.
All right. Let's move over to college basketball. Darren, a lot going on this weekend.
We're getting into the nitty-gritty now, boys. We are. Just to blow through the conferences real quick. The SEC, you get teams like Arkansas, they lose at A&M. That's an opportunity. It's not a bad loss. It's just an opportunity. But Georgia losing at home by 13 to Missouri, that's hurtful. You lose by double digits at home. Oklahoma blows a 5. I'm sorry, Kev.
I was going to say with Georgia, that's now 3 straight losses. I mean, all are good losses. It's Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Missouri. But it's a 3-game losing streak when you can't afford to start stringing losses together here.
You're sitting there at 3-10, in the what's it called? Against quad 1, and that's not going to be very, very helpful. 2-10, I'm sorry, 3-0 against quad 2, but 2, but yet their net still stays at 39. So whatever.
Oklahoma they're still playing quad 1 games, which is part of a
but
problem.
You got to win some. You got to win some to stay up there.
Part of a problem that I'll talk about in a couple of minutes too.
Absolutely. Oklahoma blows the 5-point lead to LSU. In the last 20 seconds, that was devastating. Then they got blown up by Florida. Kev,
I mean, 5 straight losses now. We just mentioned Georgia with 3. They've lost 5 in a row. 4 of them were, to good teams. At LSU at home, that's a game you absolutely cannot lose. Now they're 3-10, 4-10 in the conference. They're tied with LSU now in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the last 3 teams. It was all the same within 2 days to lose their first game of the year. They had such an amazing non-conference, and then they kind of fall apart like this. And it's not falling apart, but they fell apart in that game. They're still 4-8 against Quad 1, which isn't brutal. 2-1 against Quad 2, but the net's in the 50s now, and now all of a sudden that's a net that has dropped dramatically. Speaking of teams
now that they're clearly getting down to the 14th team in the SEC,
mm-hmm.
becomes a lot harder to get them in if they're on this losing streak.
I still don't have them over 12 yet. I know you have 14. I still have 12.
I'm down to 13 with Oklahoma out now.
That it's a good call. Then they got blown out by Florida last night, never in the game, so they didn't show up. So that was a brutal one. Texas, on the other hand, does the opposite. They get the big win against Kentucky at home, game they had to have, and they took it. So Texas kind of takes themselves, not saying off the bubble, but you kind of sit there and say, I'm not as worried about them at this very moment, which can change with the next game, the way this SEC plays. So it's nuts. Vandy falls to Tennessee, then they got beat up tonight, and they were up against Tennessee most of the way. They just couldn't hold on, and then they got beat up tonight at Kentucky. So neither is a bad loss, but 2 opportunities go by the wayside. Mississippi State, talking about a team that seized opportunities. They went in and they rolled at Ole Miss, won by double digits. Then they blew out Texas A&M last night. That kind of put them secured, moved their net up into the mid-20s, where you don't worry about them as much as you were just maybe a week ago. And then the big one, just it didn't matter about getting in, but Auburn goes into Alabama and beats, and they jumped out 9-0 before you could bat an eyelash.
Yeah,
Alabama fights back, ties it up at 82, I'm sorry, 68. My bad. And then Auburn just goes on the run late, and Janai Broome can't jump. He's not an excellent shooter by any stretch, and he might be the best player in college basketball. He just does it all. He kind of reminds you a little bit of Draymond Green to a certain extent, only a far more skilled version of it, where he seems to make block shots at big spots, gets rebounds, and hits shots when no one expects him to. So you have all that. I mean, again, so the teams that hurt themselves, Georgia and Oklahoma, right? Teams that help themselves, Texas and Mississippi State. And then you really can't hurt Arkansas or Vandy, but they didn't take the opportunities. I don't know if you guys see it any different.
I would also throw TCU in there with a big win.
Well, we're not into the Big 12 yet. We're not into the Big 12 yet. We're just doing SEC.
I'm sorry. That's right.
We'll get there. But, yeah, you're right, though. You're 100% right.
Yeah, you're right. We're in the SEC. Yep.
Just want to go one conference at a time. It gets confusing. But Tennessee, this week, Tennessee plays at Texas A&M, so that'll be interesting. Mississippi State at Oklahoma. If Oklahoma has any life in them, they have to win the Mississippi State home game here. G, you going to say something?
So I had them at 12 when we talked about this last week. I got Georgia now really close to being out. So they got to watch.
I have them out.
They got to get a couple of wins now. I mean, we're gonna keep talking about this as we go through the month of February and into the beginning of March. But these teams got to get some wins. I can't put them in because they got a net of 35 because they had 7 losses against Quad 1 teams. I just can't.
No, listen, I have them out. I have Arkansas with the 12th spot. I know a lot of people have Georgia ahead of Arkansas. I have Arkansas ahead of Georgia at this point, just on the eye test, just on watching them play.
As we're recording this, huge going on right now is Arkansas Auburn early first half, but there's a huge opportunity for Arkansas.
Absolutely. It is. It's big. You have that. I was going to mention next, you also have Ole Miss going to Vandy. That's a big game for both teams. Not that Ole Miss isn't a threat to fall out of it, but Vandy really needs that home win. Ole Miss doesn't want to lose 3 in a row. Georgia at Auburn, that's an opportunity. You don't expect Georgia to win it, but, that's one they have to take advantage of. Missouri at Arkansas home against Missouri, that's an opportunity they have to take advantage of. And then a team that could lose a game that hurt them would be if Texas happened to lose at South Carolina, because that's just one of those losses you can't afford to have in this conference. Yeah. It's the only team with a net over 80. And listen, it's not an insult to South Carolina. They beat Clemson, who's clearly in the ACC. I mean, so that's how good this conference is. South Carolina won in Clemson. So
they've had what, six losses by 3 points or less.
Don't be an apologist, Kev. I'm joking.
Go
they
Cox.
have been really
Go
in
Cox.
every game. They lost to Mississippi State in OT. I mean, they've been in a lot of games.
Yep.
So the SEC, I have 12 still in. Kev has 13. Gino, you are at how many right now?
I'm at 12.
Okay. Well,
Georgia to me is hanging in right now.
I have Arkansas as 12. I have Georgia out.
Well,
So now
Georgia, Arkansas, and Oklahoma all lost over the weekend. No
I give
differentiation.
Arkansas the nod as having the best loss of the three.
See,
I'm being honest. I know
Yeah.
it sounds
Okay.
ridiculous. A loss
All
at
right,
A&M was not as bad as Oklahoma's loss at home to LSU, in my opinion.
Yep.
Okay.
So
All right.
and Georgia disappoints me at home also. So now
Right.
let's go to Big East because the logo's behind you, G. Right? So why not? So St. John's holds off Creighton. Great game.
Great
Every
game.
game that St. John's plays is exciting. I shared with you guys something we're not going to play on here. The Rick Pitino halftime speech.
We want to
Great.
keep this
That
TG
wasn't that
here.
good. That was the Providence game, by the way. But you see how motivated it is. It's all about defense with this guy. I don't care if you missed the effing shots. Play defense. How weak are you? How weak? Where were you raised? So many things he went off on these guys on. But St. John's, I mean, that win, not that they weren't clearly in, but they're clearly in. Team that really hurt themselves this week was Villanova. They got pummeled at Providence, and then they lost. They had a double-digit lead in the second half at UConn and blew it last night.
Yep.
Almost a chance to resurrect it. I mean, I don't even have them on life support right now. They would have to do something miraculous to get in my opinion. Xavier beat DePaul. They're supposed to do that. It keeps them on life support, so to speak. UConn getting that win last night gets them off the snide.
Well,
I feel like
especially after UConn's loss to Seton Hall. I mean,
which is disgusting.
That was horrendous.
They blew the game late too. I mean, Seton Hall stole that game from them. So listen, we could go through all the games. Really, this is a 4-bid league to me right now. I don't think anything's changing on it. Just want to see how high, St. John's Marquette can get, so to speak. UConn does not look like the two-time champion this year. Even though this kid McNeely is the freshman, is really rising to the occasion, starting to play really, really well. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I don't think he'll play more than 1 year, though, there, because he's that good. So let's get to the Big Ten, right? Why not? Let's see what they got going on. So when we look at them, Izzo, first and foremost, congratulations. He breaks the record.
Yep.
The other interesting thing, he breaks Bob Knight's record. The other interesting thing that happened last night was Wisconsin, which this is the best offensive Wisconsin team we've ever seen. I mean, going back past Dick Bennett, it's not even close.
Really good.
I mean, Tanjay can flat out play. I mean, this team can play. And this is a team that's always relied on defense and rebounding and Kaminsky and all the other things to get them where they had to go into the Final Four. And now they light it up. They beat Illinois. There was no handshake line last night. And I couldn't figure out why. I finally got the answer a few hours ago. The Illinois team was sick. The coach didn't want to spread it, so he didn't want them to have to shake hands because they had a few players that were sick. So Underwood just kind of waved, and then he went into the Wisconsin locker room at a little bit of a distance afterwards just to congratulate them, tell them what a great team they are, what a pleasure it was playing against them. Classy move by Underwood.
Good.
I love seeing that kind of stuff. UCLA, who I think was kind of safely in, but they beat Indiana on the road over the weekend. Then they lost to Minnesota last night. Again, this is a team that lost to North Carolina the same way. They missed foul shots down the stretch and gave the game away. They went 9 for 19 from the line. It's like a St. John's type of feel with one of those Achilles heels. Nebraska won at Northwestern, which was a big win, but then they got blown out tonight at Penn State. So I don't know. Listen, Penn State's good, but they're not a tournament team. Nope. Michigan wins at Ohio State. Now Ohio State's record in the conference is losing. Still probably in with the net of 29. But again, Gino's going to talk about the net in a few minutes about how much we love it. Oregon beat Rutgers. They needed that. They had lost a few in a row. They needed to right the ship. Right now they're leading at Iowa at the half. USC, who might have been like maybe you thought about them, they lost at home to Minnesota as well. So you kind of take them out. Wisconsin with the wins at Purdue and the win against Illinois. Wisconsin really has them and Michigan seem to be the top two teams in the Big Ten. So, guys, where are you right now in the Big Ten? What are you thinking?
I think I still got 10 in.
Yeah, me too.
I'm at 10 now.
I'm at 10 also.
Nebraska to me is one hanging on.
They're the 10th.
Yep. No risk of them not making the tournament, these two teams, but 2 losses by Illinois, 2 losses by Purdue over the last 3 or 4 days is just not the way you want to start going into the February stretch. I mean, Purdue loses to Wisconsin. I get it. Then they lose to Michigan State. I get it. These are good teams. They're not bad teams. Illinois did the same thing. They lose to Michigan State, then they lose to Wisconsin. I get it, but at the same time, when these teams are playing for seeding, you need them to play some big games, and they're showing the opposite right now, these teams.
I agree with you on that. It's a little unsettling for both squads, in my opinion. Let's look at the Big 12 real quick, because you brought it up before, Kev. So,
okay.
Biggest game was Houston winning at Arizona. That was a huge win for Houston. I'm just saying for seeding.
Yep.
The number one seed, getting that secured. And then Arizona went back and won at Baylor. Baylor beat West Virginia, who won tonight against Cincinnati. So they're all kind of beating each other up. Nobody's really sweeping except for Houston. Iowa State beat Cincinnati. So Cincinnati loses twice. I think that kind of buries them in my book. I'm sorry, Kev. G.
And I'm going to bury another team with you, and that's Kansas State.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say them next. They got swept in that dreaded Utah trip I talked about last week.
Lost to BYU, lose to Utah.
That game was tied late, but they couldn't they couldn't get ahead. Kansas, by the way, Kansas got blown out. Worst loss in the self era against an unranked team. Got blown out by BYU. I think that win really puts BYU in great shape, because you talked about their strength of schedule last week, Kev. They were like the threes, right?
Yeah,
you had
really
mentioned
bad.
it.
Yep.
And so you didn't know what to do, but they beat the crap out of Kansas. You're looking right now this year. You're looking at not a great Kansas team, not a great North Carolina team. May not even make the tournament.
Yeah.
Not a great UConn team. I mean, you're looking at some blue bloods that are just not involved. We haven't seen Syracuse in a tournament there's some squads that we used to see a lot that we're not seeing at all. And then, TCU, you talked about it. They had a great week.
Yeah.
They won over the weekend, and then they knocked off Texas Tech last night, which was a huge win. And I'm trying to remember who they beat over the weekend. I forgot to write it down. Sorry, but they had two good wins over the weekend. It wasn't a great team they beat, but it was somebody. And they won by 4 at home on the road, and then they won last night at home. So TCU at Arizona State. So it's not a great team, but it was a team ahead of them in the net. So Arizona State somehow is in the 50s in the net. TCU's in the 70s in the net. Again, Gino will talk about the net in a couple seconds here. We're going to get to that. But to me, this league is pretty cut and dry now. I don't have any of the periphery teams really making it at this point.
So
Cincinnati, I have out. West Virginia is my last team in this league. I still have them hanging on.
You have the 8?
I have the 8.
Yep. I have 8. And, TCU with the win gets back onto the bubble, very much outside looking in, but, at least still they're back on life support.
If they beat Cincinnati on the road this weekend, which will not be easy, they will be. I think they'll have some consideration.
That's really like a lose or leave town match there.
It is. It really is.
I do not have West Virginia in at this moment.
Okay, so you don't have them.
West Virginia is my first team out at the moment.
Gotcha. And you also get West Virginia at Texas Tech this week, so there's an opportunity.
Yep.
And you get Iowa State at Houston, which are the two best teams, despite Iowa State's little slump in the middle. They had a couple injuries. Iowa State, Houston are the two best teams in this league. Real quick with the ACC, okay, this league is like it's all over the place, right? So we buried Wake Forest last week, right? And then they come back and beat SMU on the road. It's a good win. It's a real good win against the top 40. It's a quad one for them. Pittsburgh finds a way to stay alive. They beat Miami and Syracuse. They struggled with the Cuse, but they beat them. North Carolina holds off Syracuse on the road, and they blow out NC State tonight at home. So they stay kind of like where they didn't hurt themselves. The only team that really knocked themselves completely out was Stanford. They got blown out at Duke. I didn't have them in anyway.
Yeah.
So for me, this is, Clemson's good. Louisville's good. Duke is good. If they take a fourth team, it's one of those other three. It's either Wake Forest, Pittsburgh, or North Carolina, or SMU, one of those four teams. Now, Wake has beaten all three of them. They're 1-0 against all three of them. 2 of them at home, 1 of them on the road. But their net is the worst of the 4.
Yep.
So, I don't know how to figure it. I mean, North Carolina is 1-10 against quad 1. SMU doesn't have a win against quad 1. Wake has 2 wins against quad 1, not great. And Pittsburgh has 1 win against quad 1. So I don't know if they even get a fourth. Right now, I do have Wake in as my last team in, but I could see it only getting 3. Kev, thoughts?
I've got SMU as one of my last teams in as the fourth team from there. Like you said, very easily could just be the 3. I mean, 3 locks and coin flip between any of the other 3 or 4 there.
And I have 5 in. I now have Wake
Really?
in. I have Wake in now, and I have SMU hanging in at the moment.
SMU had a big blowout win tonight, too. They went into Notre Dame and won big.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention this conference only because the game of the year is this weekend. George Mason, VCU. Okay. And the reason why I mention it, because right now, George Mason has the automatic bid, which makes VCU a bubble team. Okay. If George Mason wins on the road at the Commonwealth, they will be cleared by 2 games. And, listen, it's going to come down to the conference tournament most likely anyway. But George Mason's net is 63. Neither one of them have any great wins outside of conference play. But George Mason started 2-3, and now they're 22-5. So they have played well. But this is the game of the year in the A10. This could determine 1 bid or 2 bids.
Yeah,
and
that's something that scares everybody else we talk about on the bubble right now.
And we mentioned 2 teams in the 1 bid conferences last week, and they both lost. Memphis
and Drake.
Yep.
And so I have Drake now, not necessarily on the bubble. They have to run the table for me to put him back on. They didn't have any margin of error, in my opinion. The American, Memphis loses. Okay? To Wichita State. Their net drops to 49. Are they still a lock if they don't win the tournament? And I'm going to just say it with this. Wins over Michigan State, Missouri, UConn, San Francisco, Clemson, and Ole Miss. Yet a net of 49. I can't figure out the net. I don't know. But they have 6 really good wins. I don't know if you call San Francisco a good win. I do. I think it's a pretty good team when I've watched them. But
to me, when you look at the AP and coaches poll rankings, that's a little bit more eye test than anything else. I mean, they were still top 25, even though their net was 40 something.
Yeah, 49 right now.
49 right now. Yep.
Darren, go back to the last 2 multiple bid leagues.
Yep.
So the Mountain West.
Yep, I didn't get there yet.
We didn't get there yet.
We have Mountain West and West Coast Conference.
Yep.
I was just the alphabetical on the smaller ones. But
all right. I'm sorry.
No big deal. I had Memphis, I had Missouri Valley. Drake losing to Bradley. Now they've split. It was a really good game. Bradley down the stretch. Bradley was losing last look tonight, and Drake was winning big. But that doesn't really matter at this point. Mountain West, New Mexico edges Utah State at the pit, 82-79. A block at the buzzer kind of saves them. San Diego State blows out Boise State. Colorado State routs Wyoming. If you're not familiar with it, that's a rivalry game. So usually you don't see a blowout between Colorado State and Wyoming. That is their natural rival. So they all, 2 of them stay alive. Boise State gets hurt. Do you still think New Mexico and Utah State are both in at this point?
I do.
And now I have San Diego State in now. They're in.
I have them in. I have them on the bubble in. They're the last 4 for me.
I took them off the bubble. They're in.
I think they're my first team out.
Okay, so and what is does Boise State? Boise State gets Nevada, and then they play New Mexico tonight. If they beat New Mexico at home tonight, do they get back onto the bubble talk?
Oh, definitely.
I think Colorado State is still ahead of them on bubble talk, so maybe not yet.
Colorado State visits UNLV this weekend. That's their next big one.
I know.
And then we go to the West Coast Conference, okay? San Francisco wins the game they're supposed to win. They win at San Diego, okay? Really nothing else happened. Santa Clara, you coast through. St. Mary's plays Gonzaga this weekend. Team net 18 plays team net 11. Usually you look at this, but I think both teams are probably securely in, despite not necessarily having the resume that we're used to seeing from a Gonzaga. Gino, why don't you jump in on your net talk now?
So Gonzaga has a net of 11, okay? This is not a great team for a net of 11. They have 4 good wins on their resume right now, and it's Baylor and Indiana, San Diego State, and in conference, San Fran. They have 7 losses against 6 of them are against good teams. So they have losses: West Virginia in overtime, Kentucky in overtime, UConn, UCLA, St. Mary's, Oregon State, and Santa Clara. What gives them a net of 11? The fact that they have 6 games basically in the quad one bucket, and they played ranked teams at the time. So Kentucky was a 4 seed when they played them. They lost in overtime. Kentucky, UConn was an 18th ranked team. They lost to them. So they keep losing these against good teams, and the net is still going down, but this is not a good squad. And listen, if you look at the metrics, other than all of these losses, if you're just going by records, San Francisco has the exact same records. They are basically neck and neck. So at this moment, if their
net is 60 though.
And that's where I'm going. If the only thing that gets Gonzaga in over San Francisco is the net, there's going to be some screaming. Now, Gonzaga has 4 games left. Washington State tonight, St. Mary's, at Santa Clara, and then the last game of the season is at San Francisco. So at San Francisco may be telling us a lot about who's going to be in or who's going to be out or who's going to be on the bubble as they get to that tournament. It's going to be interesting, guys.
So do you have San Francisco still in, Gino?
Absolutely.
I don't. I have them close, but I don't have them in.
Okay, so that means that the only reason you have Gonzaga in is because they have a low net.
They played a better schedule too. They did play a better schedule.
They lost.
They won a couple, lost a couple, but they play everybody, and that's why your net goes down. When you play more quad ones, you get that benefit of the doubt a little bit. I get your point. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not crying over. But San Francisco is 1-5 against quad 1 and 2-2 against quad 2. That makes them 3-7 against the top, let's say, 60 to 100 teams. It's really hard to say, wow, this team has got a better resume than Gonzaga, who's played just better competition. Now, San Francisco beats Gonzaga to end the season and, by God, finds a way to get that 3 seed and beats them in the tournament. I think they need to win one of them and maybe both of them to get in.
Okay.
I understand your argument. I get your argument, man.
I just don't like all of these losses against decent competition, and that's what's driving their net so far down. They got 2 wins. They got a win against Baylor and a win against Indiana, and after that. And Indiana is not the best team in the world. And after that, their 2 best wins are San Francisco and San Diego State. I mean, come on.
And who's San Francisco win against?
But they don't have a net of 11, Kev. Gonzaga has a net of 11
but you got at least play.
For no wins.
Well, they got 2 more than San
for
Francisco.
No wins.
And their losses are better teams than San Francisco's losses.
But that's it.
I don't think that's a 50-point difference in that.
But that's it. That's what I'm saying. So they got all these losses against
San Francisco. San Francisco's big games, okay? They beat Boise State to start the season, second game of the season. That was a nice win. Lost to Memphis. Lost to Clemson by 15. Beat Fordham. That doesn't really count. They lost to Bradley. Okay. They beat Santa Clara, which is a decent win. They lost to Santa Clara in the rematch by 23.
Yep.
They lost by 20 at St. Mary's, but then they beat St. Mary's by 1. So that's their other good win. And then they lost at Gonzaga by 11, but they get them one more time. The other games in between are Pacific and Oregon State. Oregon State on the road will be a little bit of a challenge. That's a decent squad. They can run the table. Listen, if they run the table in regular season, they're 24-7. Okay. If they're 24-7 and win a round in the West Coast Conference and get to 25-8, you got to consider them.
Oh yeah.
Because then you sit there and you say, "Wow, do I want a 16-14 or 17-15 Arkansas team?" I'm just using them as an example.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
Or do I want? Or do I want a 25-win San Francisco team that has a win against St. Mary's, has a win against Gonzaga, and and a win against Boise State, who started off looking like a better win than it is right now.
Yep.
But based on that resume, that's why San Fran has the net they have. I get it. I'm with you, and I'm not saying they're a lock, but that's why they have that net. But I look at Gonzaga's net, and I don't know why it's 11, because they have all these losses against better teams. Well, if you go in there and you go 0-8 against freaking quad 1 and 2, what is that showing you? That you're not good. You got to get some of those wins.
Listen, you lose to West Virginia in overtime. You lose to Kentucky in overtime. Lost a close one to UConn. I get it. Lost a close one to UCLA on the road. No, you're right, though. I mean, listen, they lost to Santa Clara also. Lost to Santa Clara at home, by the way, at the Kennel. So they have not been great. Lost at St. Mary's, but we'll see what happens when they get the rematch this weekend.
Hey, Kev, and I'm going to say this. Don't put like a hex on me, but otherwise, honestly, you're South Carolina with a low net, but not a lot of wins. But that's it. This is what my problem is with this net right now, is that they reward Gonzaga for all these losses against quad 1 and 2s. Well, big deal. You got to win some of them.
See, my argument on the net a little bit, and it's the ACC, and then we'll get off of this whole thing, is, okay, so Wake Forest has beaten Pitt. They've beaten Carolina. They've beaten SMU, and they have the lowest net.
Yep.
Okay, there are only 3 losses, 4 losses in conference. They lost to Duke. They lost at Louisville. They lost at Clemson. Okay, and they lost at home to Florida State in a game that they blew. That was the bad one, right? Their other losses are at Xavier, which is not a brutal loss on the road.
No.
They lost to Florida, which is not a bad loss either. And they lost to Texas A&M. I mean, these are their losses. I don't know why their net is 58, but I can't figure it out. I mean, but at the same time, it is what it is. We got to see if they're going to use it as a guide, just a pure tool and guideline, or if they're going to use it as gospel. We'll find out as we get closer. But next week, we'll be talking about 4 different teams that lost big games that they should have won, and we'll be doing this all over again. So I think that kind of covers us with college, unless there was something else you guys wanted to add. I know there was some women's stuff you might want to talk about, Kev.
Yeah, just three big games between 6 of the top 7 teams, 2 upsets. Last Thursday, USC beats UCLA 71-60 in overtime. Juju Watkins, the great sophomore, 38 points, 11 rebounds, 8 blocks, and 5 assists.
Great play.
Great effort there. Sunday, the one that was not an upset, Texas rallies from 12 down in the third, beats LSU 65-58. And then the shocking result, not so much that they won, but the way they won. UConn goes into Columbia and just dominates the Gamecocks 87-58. I mean, you don't expect the Gamecocks to lose by 30. Broke their 71-game home winning streak. Last time the loss was December of 2020. I mean, UConn used a 22-3 run between the first and second quarter, blew the game open, and South Carolina got to 10 at one point. Gino called timeout, went on a run, and never a game.
No, Gino called the timeout.
Gino wanted the TO on.
Yep. So updated rankings. Notre Dame, who didn't play any of the games there, they keep winning. They moved up to 1. Texas moves up to 2. UCLA falls to 3. USC 4. UConn 5. South Carolina 6. LSU 7. This week coming up, none of them have really any big games against anybody that good. So we'll see if any upsets happen. But you're still looking at those 7 being primed for a championship run.
Cool.
All right. Let's head over to some baseball. So before we get to Yankees and Mets, let's hit on some points that have come up, some things that have come up in the last week. So Boston signed Bregman.
Yep.
And since the signing, Rafael Devers has come out and said he is not switching positions. So we are wondering.
And Alex Cora has come out and said the GM is not here anymore. That promised you can play third base.
Yep. So we will see how this starts playing out. No trade has happened, so Tristan Casas is still there at first base. So the thought of potentially moving Devers to first isn't an option at the current time. We'll see how this starts playing out as we get through spring. Vladimir Guerrero has not signed an extension with Toronto, so it looks like he will be a free agent next offseason.
Every Met fan is jumping for joy.
Potentially a trade candidate as we get to the trade deadline over the summer.
Yep.
The Cubs signed Justin Turner to a 1-year deal to play third base. Trout is changing positions. He's going from center field to right field to try to get his body to the point where he can actually play more than 107 games a year.
Honestly, overdue.
Yeah, overdue.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And Houston today signed second baseman Brendan Rodgers. They also have Mauricio Dubon in camp as a second baseman. Looks like Altuve is moving to left field. That is where they had him taking balls today in spring training. So that's interesting. Yankees came out and said Stanton has tendonitis in both elbows. That's a little interesting. And
What do you do? What do you do all winter?
And the New York Mets made the headlines as Frankie Montas has a lat strain.
Oh yeah,
likely out until May and June. We will see how that plays out as we get through spring. Also, so any baseball comments in general before we get to Yankees Mets, guys?
No, I mean, listen, the Red Sox, I love what the Red Sox have done in this offseason. They're scaring me a little bit, be perfectly honest. You put Bregman in that lineup against that little wall, it's almost like playing in Houston for him. It's probably the best spot he could have went to.
Yeah.
I don't think he had the power to hit at a lot of other yards, but I think playing against that monster is going to be ideal for him. I thought that was a great move.
He'll hit 20 home runs, but he'll hit 50 doubles.
He's going to hit the ball off that wall all day, and them going out there and with the moves that they've made in the rotation with Crochet and Mueller coming in to join Giolito and Houck and Bello. I mean, and Cutter Crawford. They have a 6-man rotation they're going to go to. I hate saying good things about the Red Sox. I hate this team more than any other team in any sport, but this team scares me this year. They're going to be improved. No. And I know we're going to get into the Yankees and Mets, but I just with Bregman in that lineup and what they've done with the rotation, if Buehler is even somewhat of a horse, it's going to be interesting to see.
Defensively, is there any problem with Devers at third?
He's not very good. I mean,
he's not great, but
he's serviceable.
He's for Boston. I mean, he's your star.
I know.
What was Alex Cora though? He was a defensive-minded player.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, just coming off the guy. Not saying he's right to do this. I mean, I'm just saying he probably wants to put the best defensive team he can out there with the pitchers he's got.
And Bregman would be the better player third. But, if you're looking at 1 year, because he's got opt-outs after this year. If Bregman's only here 1 year, and then if you start moving Devers around, and unless you start doing things, I mean, he's got the long-term contract.
Listen, I know what Darren and you are going to say, but Devers is 35-100, and there's no way I'm moving him if he's going to be unhappy. I'm sorry.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
No way. It's not happening. I'm sorry.
I'm just giving you the Cora angle. I don't agree with it. You don't mess with your best player.
Yep.
Listen, Bregman originally came up as a shortstop and moved to third. I'm sure he could play second with no problem if needed.
Right now, that's where he's penciled to play, by the way.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm sure he can play second with absolutely no problem. So,
yep.
All right.
You'll be okay.
Let's hit the Mets for a little bit. So, over the winter, they obviously brought in Soto, brought in Montas, brought in Holmes, brought in AJ Minter, brought in Siri, re-signed Alonso. That was a big one.
Yep.
Severino's gone. Bader's gone. Iglesias is gone. Quintana, still a free agent, but gone at the moment. JD Martinez, gone, but unsigned at the moment. Hey, listen, it's another bat. Kev, why don't you talk to me a little bit about the Mets?
Yeah, I'm not worried about the offense. To me, Iglesias would be a luxury now as a backup to be there, especially since they don't have a true backup shortstop on this team unless you're keeping Nick Madrigal up with this lineup. Right now, if assuming they don't keep him up, your emergency shortstop is probably Jeff McNeil of all people. Lindor right now is going to have to be penciled in to play 162 games. Now, offensive side, you mentioned a couple of the guys, but to me, when you can sit there with, Marte and Winker as your DH platoon, have them play, a couple games here and there in the outfield to give, Soto a day DH or rotate some of these other guys through DH. Again, defensive wise, Siri replaces Bader last year. He's got one of the best defensive center fielders out there, and pop in the bat when he makes contact. That's his own problem. So to me, you look up and down the lineup, and if you've got the Siri Taylor combination batting ninth, that's not too bad a lineup there. It's gonna come down to the bullpen. Hopefully Diaz, after missing all of 23, I think towards the end of last year he was pitching a lot better than early in the year. Obviously, after he lost his closer job for a little while, I think with him, with Minter out there, I think the bullpen has got some depth. So I think it's going to be an improved bullpen over last year. The question is going to be the rotation. It's going to be, did Peterson turn a corner last year? First off, how is Senga going to be after basically missing all year? Is this the real Sean Manaea after he dropped his arm angle? Hopefully it is. Peterson, did he turn a corner? Or is last year more of an outlier? Then you've got the unknowns with Clay Holmes moving to the rotation. Right now, Tyler McGill would be your fifth starter, and we've already seen Tyler McGill.
Well, Griffin Canning. Yeah, don't count out Griffin Canning, man.
So they're going to go six, and they're going to got Griffin Canning. You've got Paul Blackburn. I tell you, Quintana would seem like a nice pickup right about now. But I think that's going to be the one area that they're going to have to outscore some of these teams early on. I think they have the offense to do it. Especially with that top of that lineup. And we talked about it a little bit last week. Some combination with Lindor, Nimmo, and Soto up there. Somebody's going to be on base. Maybe two of the three are on base most time in the first inning. Chance for Pete to drive in a few. Vientos. No reason why they can't be scoring 1 or 2 runs every first inning.
The thing about the Mets to me is Vientos has to be for real.
Yep.
And Alvarez has to bounce back, because then it's just the top of the order that you're worried about. I think that they both can. I like Alvarez's bat a lot, so I hope to see it come up. And Vientos looked amazing in down the stretch.
Yeah, it's 25 and 80 for real.
For who?
I think so.
For both. Well, more for Vientos. I think Alvarez, knowing that he's going to probably catch about 115, 120 games, I think. His offensive numbers won't be quite as good. But, it's 25 and 80. Cementia that Vientos is.
Absolutely. Listen, he's not Soto. He's Vientos. We're not looking for him to be, 30, 110 with an on base well over 4. You're not looking for that for Vientos. You're just looking for him to be.
So here's the only thing with Vientos. I think one very good BABIP, batting average balls in play last year. Very good. Okay. That's going to come down, which means a little regression is going to happen. Okay. And I think the Met fans are going to remember the playoff Vientos, who was hitting home runs every other day. And that's not what you're going to see in the regular season. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the Yankee fan looking at the Yankee Stanton.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Stanton.
For me, I think you're going to get a little regression with Vientos. 25-80 is probably yes, but I don't know. Let's see.
I'd be very happy with 25 and 80.
Is there a sophomore slump in there? I don't know. But, the addition of Soto to the lineup makes me think that even if Vientos comes back a little bit, it's not as bad as you think.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you hit on it, Kev. I think the big problem with this team is, what are you getting out of this starting rotation? Because, you need Manaea from the second half.
Yep.
Just to be a decent rotation. There's no big gun in this rotation. You're counting. I'm not saying they are, but if you're counting on Senga to be the Senga from 23, who the hell knows what you're going to get?
Yep.
We saw him in 8 innings last year. I have no idea. So to me,
a couple of them good, a couple of them not good.
Agreed. To me, the starting rotation is the question mark. I like what they did with the bullpen. I think you're okay out there. I think the depth on the bench on this team is great. It's just, for me, it's the starting pitching is going to be the question mark. So
yep. And if you start getting a couple of injuries, whether it be leaving out Lindor,
you already got one. You already got one to the starters, which is part of the problem.
But
which is something you couldn't have
lineup wise. You know, if you pick up an injury or two, assuming it's not Lindor,
Well,
Soto, and Alonso. You know, you got guys like Acuna who came up last year in September, and for those 2 weeks replacing Lindor played real well. And highly rated prospect. You know, he can play second, he can play center. If you want him at second, if it's in corner outfield, you know, you got McNeil to go out there. They've got some flexibility here,
yeah,
so
yeah.
they
I
can
mean,
survive. You know, injuries short term to people who are
like,
not their big three.
and Kev, you don't know as we go through spring training if Mauricio or
Yep.
Acuna establish themselves as some kind of player for this team. Does McNeil take on a more utility role, or
Very
not?
well. Yep.
I don't even say utility in a negative aspect, but
No, in a very positive aspect. Yeah.
Is he a guy that plays 4 times a week at 3 different positions? You don't know how that's going to work with this team, and they do have enough depth. Brett Beatty is still here, also, by the way.
Yeah.
With Vientos, he kind of becomes a lost name in this group, but it's
Yep.
true. So
a year ago, everybody wanted Beatty and no one wanted anything to do with Vientos in the Met organization. I'm not saying the fans. I'm just saying the Met organization. So now you're going to sit there and deal with it the other way. The other thing interesting with this Met team is Florida and Washington is still kind of on the rebuild.
Yeah.
But Philly and Atlanta, neither one added a ton in the offseason, by the way. Philly added Luzardo. They added Kepler. Atlanta added Profar, was really their big move. And they're really kind of banking on everybody getting healthy. So they're counting on Acuna coming back and Strider in a couple of months.
And Riley.
And Riley coming back and all these other guys. That top of that division is going to be ridiculous. Those are 3 excellent teams. I mean, Philly's rotation, I think, might be better than the Dodgers rotation. You know,
I think it's more proven right now.
Definitely more proven. I think it's better as well. I think that Atlanta's rotation is really, really good because, you know, Schwellenbach was really good.
Yeah.
That kid's coming up. Ian Anderson's pretty good. I mean, these guys are pretty good on the back end. And Sale and Lopez look great. And the Mets are going out there with Minaya as the one. And I'm not saying that Minaya wasn't amazing last year. He was. But we've seen a lot of years of Minaya not being amazing. So you're hoping that this pitching clinic and everything they did with him is going to work magical. And hopefully it does the same for Griffin Canning. And it worked for Peterson. And it gets Holmes, who I think could be an effective starter. You know, there's a lot of good things to like about this Met offense. Like you said, Kev, they're going to have to outslug teams some nights. But I think that they're going to be pretty good.
All right,
really good, I should say.
Let's touch on the Yankees. So they brought in Max Fried, Cruz, and Devin Williams in the pen. They brought in Goldschmidt, Bellinger. Jason Dominguez is going to be a starter on this team. And, of course, they lost Soto. Gleyber Torres is gone. Nestor Cortez is gone. Trevino's gone. Darren, talk to me about the Yankees a little bit.
You know, it's hard to say that you lose, you know, arguably your best or second best player and you think you had a great offseason. I actually really do like the Yankee offseason. I mean, listen, if they didn't bid high enough for Soto and they lost him because they didn't do it, I'd be much angry. But they gave a really good offer. They lost by $5 million. I can't get too upset about it. I think Soto wanted to be a Met. I think it works out good. I wanted to see Dominguez play every day. I'm excited to get that opportunity. Adding Bellinger in there with this porch. We talked about it a few years ago when he was winning the MVP. You know, then all of a sudden he had the tough years. It was a little bit better last couple. Let's see what happens this year if he's able to do anything. I like Goldschmidt as an upgrade over Rizzo. I think that Cole, Fried, Rodon, Heel, Schmidt is one hell of a rotation. I think Devin Williams in the back end with the Luke Weaver none of us knew existed makes for a nice bullpen. Chisholm moving over to second base utilizes his skill set a little bit better. And then we stare at third base and DJ LeMahieu, Gino. Talk to me about DJ.
I wouldn't count out Jazz at third to start the year yet. I want to go through spring and see how this plays out. But, you know, you may see LeMahieu at third. If Jazz is at second, you're going to see Oswaldo Cabrera play some third.
Mm-hmm.
Don't count out, Darren. Do not count out Oswaldo Peraza opening up as the Yankee second baseman and Jazz playing third. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility right now. just because they said they want to play Jazz at second doesn't mean that that's how this is going to play out as we start.
Well, the one thing I'm still banking on, I'm hoping for, is the Stroman for Arenado deal. Because if that does come through, it helps both squads.
Oh, absolutely.
To be honest with you, Stroman in the first half of his season is outstanding. You let him pitch in the first half. He's great before he breaks down. It'll be good for the Cardinals, and they can still deal him at the deadline and get something back for him and get the prospects they want. They get rid of Arenado, who they told them that they wanted to get rid of him, so he has no desire to be there. And all of a sudden, listen, for that kind of trade, I would make the move, put Arenado at third, put Chisholm at second, and all of a sudden the offseason becomes really good.
Yeah.
I mean, not that Arenado's Arenado of old or the Arenado of Colorado.
He doesn't have to be.
But he's got to outperform Peraza and LeMahieu. So I feel pretty good about his chances. I'll put it that way.
But my favorite move of all the ones that are on offense or position players is Bellinger. Strictly for the fact that you move Judge to right field.
No doubt. I like that too.
I never understood this. I know he's done a good job out there, but I've always much preferred Judge in right field.
Listen. I completely
dropped the ball in center field last year.
That's even before. That's even without.
Listen,
I mean, that happens.
I completely agree with you, except for last year we had a guy named Soto out there, so we didn't have a choice last year. Okay, all right.
Listen, the Yankee outfield defense suddenly is better this year than it was last year. Just because, and it's not a shot at Soto, but Bellinger's better than him defensively, and it's fine.
Much better. Yeah.
Dominguez, if I get to see him every day, I'm excited about it. And you still have Grisham sitting there as your fourth outfielder, who is Gold Glove caliber. So you're okay with all that. The rotation you like. The pen seems like it's coming together. A lot of things. This is the best team in the American League.
Without a doubt.
American League East. And that's funny to say because last year everybody was on the Baltimore bandwagon, and all these young kids had a rough year. Those guys could all rebound, and Baltimore could be the team everybody's chasing. We'll find out. G, you're going to say something? Sorry.
So my favorite acquisition was Bellinger also, but I loved getting Goldschmidt in here to play first base. They've been screwing around with this first base position for 2 and 3 years now, and I'm so tired of it. I can't wait to have a bona fide first baseman play first base for the first time in a while. I don't have to worry about LeMahieu going to find a first baseman's glove, okay? But, Darren, the big thing for me is exactly what you and I have basically been screaming about for a year and a half, which is give me a closer. Get me a closer. I don't want to see Clay Holmes close. And it got calmed down midway through the season when they switched to Weaver. And then Weaver kind of, he really pitched well when we needed him to. But we weren't happy with this because we kept saying it's just a matter of time until they figure out Weaver, and he goes three straight games and giving up a home run in the ninth. But listen, this is Devin Williams now. This is we wanted the closer, Darren. We got a closer now. I mean,
and the last time we saw him, he was giving up a homer to Pete Alonso. But
listen, everybody gives up
again. The last time I saw Judge, he dropped the fly ball. Right? I mean, these are all things that I'm not going to crush Devin Williams. I think he's definitely an upgrade in the bullpen. Definitely makes us much stronger. The kid Cruz they got from the Reds, live arm, like that add to the pen as well. And Heel as a 4, as a young pitcher, and Schmidt as a 5, the depth of the rotation is really good. Obviously, you want to keep a guy like a Stroman or have someone that's a 6 starter because you're going to have injuries. But if he's unhappy and he refuses to go to the bullpen, then what are we going to do? You deal him, get him out of here. He's always been a malcontent. You get him to St. Louis, bring in the Gold Glove third baseman. You improve your defense all around. You're paying a little bit more money, but you got rid of $16 million. What do you add? Another $10, $12 million to your payroll? I know it's not nothing, but it's still. I think it's still the move that they have to make. And again, this division actually outside of Tampa, every team seems to be a little bit better. I mean, Toronto. That top of their rotation with Berrios, Gossman, and Bassett's good. I mean, it really is. You don't expect Bichette to hit as badly as he did last year again. Springer, if he stays healthy ever. Vlad's still on the team. Santander just makes their offense better. Will Wagner's supposed to be a stud. I mean, if he gets the at-bats at the
Andre Jimenez is going to give you more speed. I mean,
yep.
And then you got Baltimore again. You got Gunnar. You got Westberg. You got Rushman. You brought in O'Neill. O'Hearn, Newcastle, Holiday supposed to be the best player in baseball by now. I mean, there's so much there. They just didn't do much in the rotation, which kind of surprised me. I thought that they would do something there. And I already told you about the Red Sox. The Red Sox scare me a little bit. I like what they did, which I hate saying. So that bothers me. But this division is going to be tough, but I think the Yankees should win it.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, it's the beginning of spring. We'll see how this starts playing out. We'll give you more updates as we go through spring training with these teams.
Games start this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah. Kev, you want to touch on the NBA?
Here we started off with the NHL All-Star Game.
About what you do correctly.
What you do correctly. The NBA, here's a big problem. Number one, with the skills competition. Mac McClung. Nice kid. Can dunk the hell out of the ball. Back-to-back slam dunk championships. Great. That means that's 2 less championships than games he's played in his NBA career. Guy's played 5 games in his NBA career. What the hell is he doing in the slam dunk contest? I mean, great.
What he's doing is none of the players want to compete.
Right.
He's made more money in the slam dunk than he has in his career.
So then you got that. And then you've got, the tournament, hey, I give him credit for trying something because they had to do something. So you want to put together these little 8-man teams or whatever and play, 2 games and then the finals, fine. You know what? Draymond, shut up. These young guys shouldn't be in the All-Stars. You play, you earn your way onto the floor Sunday in the All-Star game. This is the future of your league. I didn't see anything wrong with the 8 rising stars being the 4th team in this little tournament that you do. That's fine. But then when you're doing the tournament games, they're only playing like 11 or 12 minutes, and there are stoppages all over the place. You had 20 minutes delay in the finals to give a little presentation to as much as I love watching Shaq and Barkley and Smith and inside the NBA, you didn't need to stop the game for 20 minutes. And then you got Kevin Hart all over the place doing comedy routines.
Nobody cares about the celebrities at these games. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Here is my line, Kev. Before all this last week, the whole weekend looked like a big waste of time to me.
And it was.
That is my only line. I spent maybe 4 minutes with it in total. And honestly, it wasn't bad that they let the young guys play. Oh. Except there's one thing. There's one thing with this, Kev. If you're gonna give me an All-Star game, I want your stars on the court.
Yeah.
I don't want these young guys. I want the stars on the court if that's what you're going to do.
Well, you've already got 24 stars out there.
I know. If you're not going to do it that way, it's fine. But, to have all these young guys out there and have the big stars not out there, in what's supposed to be your game is it's a little rough for me. Darren, you had an idea, though.
Fun. The skills competition is fun. The 3-point fun to watch. The slam dunk, it's run its course. I'm sorry.
And Kev, by the way, and LeBron doesn't play, which is another story altogether. But
an hour before the game, I'm not suiting up.
Yeah, Darren, you had a point about this.
The 3-point competitions also run its course a little bit. I think they have to do something. They probably have to extend it out a little bit more. It's got to be maybe a 25-footer. You got to do something a little different because right now it's almost like a layup for 90% of these guys. And that's all they do. The whole sport is threes.
Yeah.
So let's make it a 25-footer or a 28-footer or something like that. You guys are going to laugh at this, but I'm trying to think of how to make the NBA All-Star Game better. And all I could come up with, if you get 16 players on the East and 16 players on the West, and you break them down into 4 teams of 4 and play a 3-on-3 tournament where you have guys going head-to-head against each other, maybe Pride will get involved. Maybe you put a charity for each one. Maybe you find a way that you're raising money for something important that makes them a little less about, trying to impress every rapper out on the street and a little bit more about trying to do something for the community. And maybe some people would come back to it. Because right now, if you're over the age of 18, you really don't give a damn about this stupid tournament. G?
You ready? Here it is. You follow the NHL.
That's what they're talking about doing.
Give me USA, give me Canada, give me Europe, and give me Africa. And there's your 4 teams, and that's it. Because to me, the whole nationality pride thing is the only way to go that's going to give these guys anything to play for, just like the NHL is doing right now.
It's just hard to pick 12 guys in the United States. It's just a dominant team. I'm not saying that they would win it. They may not. I'm just saying it's kind of I get your point. It just maybe it's a Europe contingent. Maybe it's Doncic and those guys bringing a contingent in there, and it's or maybe it's American East Coast, American West Coast teams, Europe, Canada. I don't know if you need Africa. I don't know if there's enough great. They're all big guys. They're all big guys. They're all from France, Gino. They're not from Africa. They've all migrated.
Are you talking a week like the NHL is doing, spreading out games over a week?
Well, listen,
it won't work for one reason. The stupid NBA with the stupid load management, nobody ever plays a full season anyway. Hockey players want to play. Hockey players are out there no matter what.
What we just saw with the NBA was 4 days of a mess.
Oh no!
So give me 3 games in 4 days. I mean, give me 5 games in 4 days, and that's it.
They can't play more than 2 in the 3 days. So
the fact that here's the comment that I'll give you. Eichel comes out and says this might be the biggest game of my life tomorrow night. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's won college, junior championship, college. I mean, he's done it all. And he says this is the biggest game of his life for the U.S. against Canada. You will find none of that with these NBA players.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely
none of that. You're not going to listen. Maybe if there was an African team, I just feel like all the great African players went to France and they would represent Europe. That's the problem. Unless you want to have France have his own team, and then you want to have Germany and have its own, or Serbia or whatever have their own squad. Be the only way it would work, I think. But they're never going to play the games that way.
The only way for next year, the only thing you're hearing is USA versus the world for the All-Star game. Which again, I think is a little bit better than last year. I think you'll see a little bit of effort, but if you start talking about playing multiple games, the players are gonna say, "What's in it for me?"
Shocking.
Okay.
Don't expect that.
Yep.
All right. Anything else? Where we going next?
I got NFL 2 quick points. Number one, the salary cap goes from 255 to between 277 and 281. Don't know how they can't give us a number, but they can't. It's up over 100 million since COVID, but that year you got to remember it dropped 15 back because of the losses during the COVID year. But still up to 281, so everybody has a little bit more cap room. The other thing, Netflix is going to be seriously bidding for the afternoon football games. So the games on CBS and Fox, which would mean if they got it, there would be nothing but streaming football. There would be no over-the-air NFL. Now, technically, the contracts go to 2033, but the NFL, because they're the NFL, can opt out in 29. So we will find out in the next 4 years if there will be free football or if you have to pay for your subscription in order to watch any game during the year. That's where we're at now. That's all I had for NFL. I don't know if you guys have anything else on it before I go to horse racing real quick.
Look, sticking with football and college football.
Yep.
The only thing I saw today, the SEC and Big Ten commissioners, shockingly, were the two that said, I think we need to do something about the seating. We should change things up.
Yeah, this is
now, everybody has to agree to it. It has to be unanimous. But this is one situation where I think all three of us would agree with SEC and Big Ten commissioners here.
Of course, we want better.
The automatic bids are fine.
They're also they're also putting forth that they want 4 bids each.
Well, you can't guarantee that. Come on. I know they're going to ask for it.
Listen, I'm just telling you what they're going to ask for. Listen, Kev, they had 4 and 3 this year, and we argued that the SEC should have had a 4th anyway.
Right.
So,
but doesn't mean it's going to happen every year.
Agreed. No, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Okay. Darren, anything? Darren,
horse racing real quick. The Derby Prep. This week, the Risen Star, grade 2 at the fairgrounds. 43-1 magnitude, who no one liked. With Ben Curtis aboard. When it goes wire to wire, 1 by 8. Long shot, Chunk of Gold finished second. And the second choice built was a well-beaten third. Heavy favorite East Avenue, 4-5 shot, got crushed, finished 10th. The win was 88.40. The exacta was 26.29 and 40 cents. $1 triple, 68.50, 90 cents. And the $1 superfecta, $53,988.50. So you can make money on when you're running a bunch of 3-year-olds that don't was that often. This week, just so everybody knows, we got the Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn, 14-horse field. There's lots of speed and lots of closers, so it should be kind of exciting. As of right now, all 14 are still in. Taking a look, both of them are not the favorite, but I like Coal Battle, the 1. Come off the pace, he's 3 for 3 lifetime. And Madaket Road, who finished 3rd last time out, I thought had a good race. I think he could stalk, and he's got Baffert, and they switched to Erod Ortiz. 4 races for Madaket Road, 4 different jockeys. Let's see if Erod is the guy. Next week, after this week, the week after, we get the Fountain of Youth, the Gotham, and the San Felipe all. So it starts getting the really heavy ones. But 50 points goes to a horse that no one thought anything of in magnitude. And that's what I have for horse racing.
Any comments on the golf with Oberg winning the Genesis this week? Anything, guys?
It was a nice comeback. Maverick McNeely kind of made a run, and then Oberg overtook him. Scheffler coming off the injuries, playing real well. Patrick Rogers and Cantley and Finau and Fleetwood making a nice leaderboard. Wish Tiger would have played. That's pretty much what I would say.
Well,
he did play the TGL?
Did you see it, Kev?
Yes.
Did you see it?
They gave him the wrong club, and Fowler harassed him.
How many yards? 99. And I guess on the course, when you can tell the distance, that's 199. So they usually don't give you the first number. Oh, it's 99. Well, he thought it was 99. He takes out the wedge and hits it perfectly, 100 yards.
And that was it.
Except he was still 99 yards away.
And he was still 99 yards away.
And his teammates laughed their asses off.
They were on the
great.
floor.
And Ricky Fowler goes up. What happened there? It was great. It was just really well done.
I tell you, it's fun to watch.
99.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch this stuff.
Yeah, TGL is fun to watch. It really is.
Yep.
One last point I missed on college basketball, by the way, guys. I'm sorry. So the Illinois last night went to hang Terrence Shannon's jersey from the rafters. They hung it upside down.
They made a mistake.
He came out, and as a classy a kid as he could be, he took like an article in the Illinois newspaper or something like that, and he did something. When something in your life goes upside down, and he put that part of it upside down, always look out for your blessing, something like that. He did a really nice job on it.
Good.
Brad Underwood was livid after the game, saying, this kid gave us everything he had for 3 years, and we screwed it up. I meant to say that before. I'm sorry about that one, college basketball.
You forgot the Snickers there, the commercial. Who are the chefs?
Who are the chefs? Great oogly moogly. So anyway, that's all I got. Boys, anything else?
No, about 14 minutes left in the second, and Auburn and Arkansas are tied at the moment. So we'll see.
Missouri put up 60 in the first half against Alabama.
Wow.
Just that's the kind of game that is. I think it was 61-47 or 59-47. I have to look it up, but they were up pretty big. Anyway,
and St. John's up 17 right now, taking care of business the way they should against DePaul. No bad losses. That's my thing.
Oregon and Iowa. Oregon up 1 with a little over 2 to play in a thriller in Carver Hawkeye. So a lot of good basketball going on, and Gonzaga's up by 23. We are the Sports Kings from Queens. I'm Darren here with Gino, here with Kevin, talking about the wonderful, wild, and wacky world of sports, a wacky world where they hang your jersey upside down when they're celebrating you. Please download the podcast anywhere you can get a podcast. Check us out on YouTube as well. We're posting a lot of stuff on social media. Like it, share it, enjoy it. Tell us what you like and what you don't like. And without any further ado, may your sports be with you.